Good morning, everyone, or afternoon. I'm not quite sure what time zones y'all are in, but it's still morning for me. You can see the sunlight streaming in on my more or less east-facing window. Thank you, Paranor. Hello, Cosmic Lettuce. I owe you an email, but your email arrived just as I was going into crisis mode to prep for a talk. Yes, a sneeze is better than a dog explosion any day. Eddie is off outside enjoying this rare moment of sunlight that we're having. Some of you may be aware that there is this, which camera? I'm using that camera. Okay. There is this rumored curse about new telescopes. If you get a new telescope, so the mythology goes, the weather will go to, the weather will be horrible. It will be absolutely horrible. And so far, this has proven entirely true for CosmoQuest. First, we got a fabulous new telescope donated to us from Oceanside Photo and Telescope. Then we got a fabulous telescope donated to us by Celestron. Then we got a fabulous webcam donated to us by Bad Panda, who's actually a very good panda. And we wanted to play with all the toys, all of them. But it rained to the point that my dog lost his mind because he couldn't go outside and play. It rained to the point that our basement floor, we live in a really old house, so the floor is made of a kind of cement that water will seep through. Our basement floor started to look damp and threatened to flood. It's just been wet. And then this morning I woke up and there was this mysterious glowing orb in the sky. And there was sunlight. And the reason I was awake is because living in a small town, I am surrounded by birds that have definitive opinions on what spring should be used for, and they were quite loud. And so it was one of these things of suddenly I woke to a star that was shining and nearby, and there was no water falling out of the sky, and the birds believed it was spring. And I looked at the weather, and let me share with y'all what I saw. I'm going to first full screen the weather, and let me switch screens. Let's try this one. So here is our weather for Edwardsville, Illinois. It is currently mostly sunny at 11 a.m. Central Time. It is then destined to be theoretically only 1 to 8% cloud cover after dark. And it won't actually be dark until more like in this 9 o'clock-ish binge, but we're actually going to go through and I'm going to talk to you about all the things that go into planning a observing run, because I'm really hoping, and I don't know if I'll be able to stream this or not, because there's a good chance I'm simply going to end up tangled in cables. I'm going to attempt to set up and take some images tonight. And because this is an experiment, I'm just going to open up the windows to our office, point the telescope out the windows, and see what I can see in the horizon. So let's go through all the things that go into planning an observing run. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is begin this window. You can see I have Stellarium set up over here. I have a browser window that I can plan things in. And the other thing that I want, and I'm going to set it up over on the other screen real fast, is I want something that I can take notes in. Now, I grew up in an age of using Spark stations running Solaris Unix as what we used for observing. So I used to keep all my observing logs in VI, like a text editor that is a special version of hell, a very special version of hell to type in. But partway through graduate school, we reached the point where laptops and the internet were easily compatible because coax was run everywhere. And at that point, I learned Excel, or in this case, Google Sheets, is the way to go. So let's get everything over on one screen. And I think I have things embiggened enough to be easy for you to read. Now, the first thing that I'm going to be interested in is time. I'll just go ahead and start a new tab. Time of astronomical twilight. So there's different kinds of twilight. There's that golden hour while the sun is still in the sky that is perfect for photography. There is that soft gray period right after the sun has gone down that is perfect for filming because you kind of have light coming from all directions. And then there's that time where you're not sure, do I turn my headlights on? Do I not turn my headlights on? And you realize you're still wearing your sunglasses and it has started to get dark. And then there's that moment when the street lights start coming on, but you still can't see all the stars. And then there's that point where sunlight is totally not interfering with your ability to see stars in the sky. And it's that moment when sunlight is no longer influencing the darkness of the night that astronomical twilight ends. And one of the best places for looking up this stuff is timedate.com and timeanddate.com. I have personally never been able to jump straight to the pages on this website. I would like to. Their menu system is a bit hard to use, but wow, they have all the numbers, all of them that you could possibly want. So here it's telling me when astronomical twilight is. It's telling me both for sunrise and sunset. It also allows me to look up the sunset and sunrise times. I don't actually care when the sun goes below the horizon. I care when we go from dark enough that you take your sunglasses off, which is the 6:47, to it's dark enough to observe whatever the heck you want. So I care about when astronomical twilight ends. Now, just for words, they're hard. Just for consistency, I am going to write down sunset time. I'm going to write end astro twilight. I'm going to make this column wider. And so the end of astronomical twilight is this 7:17 p.m. local. Let's get, I can actually do this just for Edwardsville, Illinois. Okay, maybe I can't do this for Edwardsville, Illinois. Let's do this for St. Louis. And this discontinuity you see in this graph of times, that discontinuity is caused by the shift for daylight savings time. So here we are. We are on February, I don't actually know the date. We are on February, somebody please, 25th. We are on February 25th. So we have sunset at 5:49 p.m. Now, I currently am keeping my times in local times. And the reason that I have that is that's what my phone and my watch work in. Now, the sky doesn't work in local time. The sky, when I look at positions, it's generally based in universal time, which is kind of like Greenwich, but with less daylight savings time. And it's also in sidereal time. And sidereal time is what time these stars are relative to the entire clock of the sky. So you can imagine that what is straight overhead at midnight on the equinox in September is one particular 0 point, but it stays the 0 point. So that particular star at midnight in October is going to be 2 hours over to the side. So now it's going to be 2 hours different straight overhead at midnight. And so the sidereal time is constantly changing. Now, since I'm just planning to use stellarium and I'm not doing a full astronomical telescope run tonight, I'm not going to worry about any of those conversions. I just wanted you to know they're out there, and when we start observing fancier things, variable stars, that's when we're going to start worrying about universal time and sidereal time. Now, the next thing that I need to figure out is what direction am I going to be looking in? Unfortunately, I don't have the most accurate information on that. Had I thought ahead, I would have stood in my office with a compass and figured it out. You can see over here in Google Maps, I have actually located where our offices are in Edwardsville, Illinois. And we're looking out, straight out over the parking lot for Walgreens, and there's a great horizon over in this distance. This building right here actually cuts off part of our view, but for the most part, since I'm planning to look out a window, straight up is not going to be an option, but I'm going to have this entire part of the sky, and I can get fairly high up in the sky, I just can't get straight up in the sky. Okay, I'm going to take a moment to catch up on the chat because the chat has been scrolling by at 1,000,000 miles per hour. Can I embiggen that? I'm afraid that I've already switched screens. If you at me, I can do things because I'll see the at. Otherwise, I might miss it. Yes. Yeah, Mother Nature, Paranor. Yeah, she's always against us. I'd love to know how badly we misbehaved to earn what we're dealing. I do not miss coax and BNC connectors, not at all. I was forever accidentally stepping on the connectors, and oh man, so many nightmares. They hurt like Legos, and then you destroy them. Okay, so coffee is excellent. Free coffee is better, Peter. I need to know your secrets. Keeper of Maps, why are you mentioning 10 shopping months until Christmas? That is deeply disturbing. I do not need to be reminded of these things. Okay, welcome, Ashbean. Good afternoon. No, I have no coffee servant today, I'm afraid. Yeah, that it is what it is. Thank you, Keeper of Maps. Yes, it's the 25th of February. Okay, so this map, I'm going to have to guesstimate here. North is straight up, and then that means that we're kind of looking southwest-ish. So over here, when I'm plotting what I want to observe, come on, little window, I want to look southwest-ish. So let me just take over my screen with stellarium. I currently have it set for St. Louis, which is close enough. And I want to set the time. So let's go ahead and set this for 7 p.m. And this is roughly when it will get interesting tonight. I'm going to pause it so my time stops advancing on me. So this is when I expect to be able to get started. I can set a custom image in stellarium. I'm also lazy. So I don't quite, yeah. I don't have it set up. Okay, so this is south, and I want to look southwest. So this is roughly going to be our view. Now, this idea that the horizon is glowy is completely reasonable. Now, as the evening progresses, we're going to see exactly what I was hoping we were going to see. At about 10 p.m., I'm going to have a great view of Orion straight over a Walgreens parking lot. Now, while the Walgreens parking lot is not entirely exciting, the fact that I'm going to have Orion in that direction is exciting. And I want to see if I can figure out how to adjust my field of view. Okay, double clicking on my field of view doesn't work. And I don't remember this trick. Okay, I have to pull up the help. Now, the nice thing about Stellarium is they have keyboard shortcuts for everything. The bad thing about Stellarium is they have keyboard shortcuts for everything. And I can never remember which keyboard shortcut is which, and I have to look more often than I like to admit, but unfortunately more often I have to admit it. Okay, I don't want to zoom in on a selected object. I just want to zoom out. Okay, so zooming out is a slash. That did nothing. Okay, that did nothing. Let's see what else I can find here. Zoom in, out, page up, down. Okay. Let's come over here. That did it. I went the wrong direction, but that did it. Okay. So here we go. Now, the things that are going to curse me tonight, and that was way too zoomed in, by the way. The things that are going to curse me tonight is there's this moon. And this moon is illuminated 80%. This means that in the sky, when I look at it, I'm actually going to be able to see a gradient of brightness in the direction of the moon, and then my images will get darker and darker and darker across the field of view. And yes, the software I'm using is completely free. Stellarium is open source code, so you can even get into the software, hack it, add in whatever you want. And it's just absolutely rock solid. One of the really great things about it that I haven't had a chance to play with yet with our new telescopes is there is a way to make it display the field of view of your telescope. And you can also make it change so that it's showing the views for different kinds of telescopes. And now, I have completely changed my field of view again. Whoa, okay. Let's try. There we go. That's better. It's extraordinarily powerful, and you have to use it constantly to be good at it. I don't use it nearly frequently enough. I'm hoping to change that now that we have some telescopes. Now, what's really cool is you can get this, what would it look like if you had amazing peripheral vision and you could just stare straight up. So you can adjust the field of view, you can adjust all sorts of stuff. It's just cool. Now, I'm kind of hoping that this 112 degree field of view pretty much matches what I'll be able to achieve as I look out my window and move my telescope around. So I'm hoping I'll be able to capture left to right as much as this. Now I won't be able to get this high up in the sky, of course. I'll only be able to get probably about 80 degrees up in the sky. But it's exciting. I will be able to, presumably, oh man, I'm totally steering badly today. I'll be able to get Orion later in the evening. Now let's see what I can use to focus. So these are the other things you worry about. How do you focus your telescope early in the evening? Now, if you're lucky, you can get bright objects during the twilight hours. So you actually get outside early in the evening, just as it's starting to get dark. And as soon as the sky is orangey, ruddy, dark enough that you start to see the first stars pop out to your eyeballs, that's the point at which you can power up your telescope, take off the cover, and just take a picture of some random part of the sky. And inevitably there will be stars there. Now the trick is to focus on the stars and This is easiest if you have a polar aligned telescope that is on a permanent mount that you can just flip a switch and it's happily tracking. Now, one of the things that's going to curse me tonight is I don't have anything polar aligned. And since my telescope, I'm being lazy tonight since I'm just testing it, is going to be pointed out a window where the North Star is going to be hidden by a wall, I'm not going to be polar aligned. My goal is just to see what I can catch. So I will be using a compass to guesstimate polar alignment on my one telescope. And the other one, I'm just going to set it up and let things drift through the field. And I'm going to stick a webcam on. And what's kind of awesome is I can focus it as a webcam as things track across the screen. That's not a problem. And what's going to be amazing is as Orion starts to come in to view, Orion zoomed in is this amazing star forming region. And as I zoom in, you start to see the Orion Nebula popping out. And the truth is that Orion is part of a massive star forming complex. Let me pull up a picture for you. I should have made sure I had this photo ready ahead of time, but no, I didn't think to do that. Here we go. So let's see. How do I... Google Images recently changed the way they do things in ways I totally approve of, but at the same time am also greatly annoyed by, because you can no longer do just a view image. You have to go visit the website the image is on. So this is our Orion Nebula, and I'll zoom in on that. And I don't mean the Orion Nebula that is M42 over here in the sword. I mean, this is the fullness of the entire Orion star forming region. Here you see what's called Barnard's Loop. This is a ring of gas and dust that is emitting reds from the illuminated hydrogen. You have the Lambda Orionis system. It's just rich in what we call nebulosity. You have the Horsehead Nebula that's embedded over here. You have M78. It's just small, beautiful object after small, beautiful object. So what I want to think about is, as my telescope tracks through the sky, wrong direction, I'm going to have things heading towards the west. So if I point my telescope and set it up, things are going to drift through my field of view from this side to this side. So let's zoom back in on that. So what I'll probably want to do is something like set up over here and just let it drift across the Orion Nebula. And it's going to not necessarily be entirely exciting because I don't know how much zoom I have, but it's going to be a try. So I have a plan for the telescope that doesn't have a tracking system. For the telescope that does have a tracking system, I'm going to start out by trying to get a picture of this. And then the other thing that I really want to do is I want, on the telescope that has a tracking system, to mount my DSLR camera. And I haven't actually looked to see if I have a mount to do that yet. So there's going to be a certain amount of frantic digging that begins to occur as the sun begins to go down, trying to set up the equipment. I saw Keeper of Maps make the suggestion that I should totally put tape on the floor to mark the positions. That is actually a amazing idea. I have, oh man, what kind of mount do I have? It's an Explore Scientific mount. It's one of their Lomondii ones. I don't remember the model number, but it's one of the workhorse mounts by Explore Scientific. It's one that only works with a Windows box, which I'm still bitter about, but it is excellent other than the fact that it forces me to make the Windows box work. And the Windows and I don't get along. So yeah, I vaguely have a plan for this evening. It's not a great plan, but it's a plan. And the other thing that I learned as an observer is the glory of binoculars. And this particular field of view is one of my favorites in the night sky. This little spud of stars right here is the Pleiades system. It is a middle-aged open cluster of stars in Japanese. It's named Subaru. If you look at the Subaru star symbol, the stars on it actually match the stars in this particular object. I think Keeper of Maps that you're right, it's a G11, but I'm not sure. I have a bad memory for these things. So we have the Pleiades right here. If you look, there appears to be an overdensity of stars circling around Aldebaran. This is actually the burnt orange eye of the constellation Taurus. Hey, thanks, Hiro Tuxico, for hosting my stream, and I still have a zombie infesting my stream. I need to go work on those symbols. This region, this overdensity right here, this is the Hyades cluster. And what's amazing is if you watch the motion of these stars across the sky, you can see them slowly moving away from the cluster that they all used to be tightly bound in, as the rotation of the the orbit of the cluster around the galaxy slowly shreds this open cluster apart. And the stars that are on the inner edge of the cluster are orbiting a little bit faster. The ones that are on the outer part of the cluster are orbiting a little bit slower. And the effect is it's getting stretched out, torn apart effectively. This is one of the oldest open clusters to be recognized as an open cluster. So you have this very old open cluster of stars that's barely recognizable. You have this open cluster of stars that has mostly used up all of its gas and dust, that is done with star formation. And then you have over here in Orion, the Orion Nebula, which will someday be an open cluster of stars. But it isn't yet. It's still a star-forming region. There are still new stars emerging day after day. So we can go from looking in one sky at a cluster being born, a cluster living its best cluster life, and a cluster almost done, almost torn apart to being unrecognizable. And all of this can just be explored with a good camera zoom lens, with a good pair of binoculars, which is actually better than abusing your camera lens. I personally am more likely to abuse a camera. This is just an amazing chunk of sky to realize that the way we understand how star clusters evolve over time is by looking at these snapshots. All of the stars in a given cluster were they were formed at roughly the same time. These are stellar nurseries, each filled with one particular age of stars. And by looking at cluster after cluster after cluster of different ages, we can see star formation, we can see cluster evolution. It's kind of awesome. Okay, to look over at the questions that we have in the chat. Oh, Uncle Bill, I can't believe that Stellarium doesn't run on your potato system. It may mean that you need to just go find an older version. Oh, sleep well, fellow hoodlum. I'm perplexed. I've always been able to get stellarium to pretty much run on things. I guess there's always an exception to the rule, and I'm sorry, as the owner of many a potato computer, my computer reaches out with sadness for your computer. My personal laptop is a 2011 underpowered MacBook Air. I understand your plight. Anyways, this was my goal to figure out, was what can I observe? What can I see looking out my southwest view? Now, if I was going to be observing for realsies and not just poking my telescope out an open window, what I would be doing instead is looking at oh, wow, okay, trackpad fail. That's kind of awesome. I can really totally fail with a trackpad. I would be looking to see what's straight overhead. I would also be working to turn on the azimuth grid. And I know that what I want to observe needs to be fairly high up in the sky. This point where all these lines can converge. Uncle Bill, it is running on your potato system. That's awesome. Excellent. I'm so glad. Okay, so returning to my sky, this point where all the lines converge, this is called the zenith point on the sky. This line that runs from east all the way through to west, this is the meridian. And my goal when I'm observing is to observe objects as close to the zenith as I can, and as close to starting to observe them before they cross the meridian, so that I can get all the observations of them that I want with the time that I'm on the object centered on when the object crosses the meridian line. Now, that may sound strange, but if you watch how objects over time move through the sky, they aren't all going to pass through zenith. Some of the objects are going to stay always a little south of it. Some of the objects are always going to stay north of it because, well, like here we have the Big Dipper. So watch what the Big Dipper does over time. Let me move time forward. So we have the Big Dipper is getting higher and higher in the sky as it circles around the North Pole star. So here, I think this is Polaris right here. Yeah, that's Polaris right there. So everything is circling around Polaris. And this means that things are going to get high in the sky at a certain point. And I lied. The meridian cuts north-south, not east-west. This is the meridian line right here. Sorry for lying. It's still, I'm only on my first cup of coffee. I'm going to blame coffee. So you have north-south line is the meridian line. And everything crosses that meridian line at some point, but not everything crosses through zenith. So if I wanted to observe this last star in the handle for an hour, what I would do is figure out at what time does that handle star cross through the meridian line, and it's getting closer and closer and closer and closer and closer and closer, and right about there you can see that it's on this meridian line. And I would want to start observing this 30 minutes earlier, and then it would cross at the right time. There's a weird discussion of mutton going on. I am now hungry. That's all I've got. Anyways, if I was observing for real, what I would do is I'd figure out where on the sky are all of the objects that I want to observe. Specific variable stars generally are the kinds of things I like to look at. One of my favorite objects that I'm hoping to get back to being able to observe is AH Leo. This is a variable star in the constellation Leo. I want you to take me there. Will you take me there? There we go. I have no clue where on the sky. Really, highlight AH Leo for me. I shall zoom in more. Options. Let's try options. Nope. So there is somewhere in this field a faint little star called AH Leo that is a pulsating variable star in the constellation Leo. I think that's the center of my screen. Okay, it's somewhere around in here. It apparently has no interests in highlighting it for me. Now, this is an object that is up this time of year, and one of the reasons I know this is back when I was an undergrad, I observed this star during the winter in Michigan when it was horribly, horribly, horribly cold. It's an interesting little variable star because as an Aurolari, it pulsates so that you can noticeably see its light changing from hour to hour through the night. It's not Leo, it's AH Leo. And its maximum light, unlike a lot of Aurolaris, it changes from cycle to cycle over time. And how much it changes from year to year to year. So it's just a neat little star that misbehaves terribly, and I am intrigued by it and would love to someday figure this sucker out. So I'm hoping to be able to do observations of this thing. So in general, I want to observe things as close to zenith as possible. But if my object refuses to go through zenith, I just want to observe it as close to zenith as it can get, and all objects at their closest point to zenith are generally crossing the north-south meridian line. So this line right here through the sky. So when an object is crossing the meridian, that's when I want to be observing it. So Bill Wink, I see you saying that you have a thing for orange and red giants. Are you talking about Myra variables or just giants in general? I like to look at stars that change over time and then interesting nebula. Those are my particular things that I like to observe. Yeah, so I vaguely have a plan for tonight. I vaguely have a plan for the future. Vague is good enough to get me started. Now, one of the things that I'm noticing is Jupiter is currently up. It will be visible through my window. Sunrise, that's not pleasant. So let's look over time to see. So I'm going to set this to a time I'm willing to be in my office. So I'm setting the time to 10:30 at night. Now I'm going to advance the days and see over time what different things end up visible through my window. So here comes Jupiter. Run, Jupiter, run! So you can see the moon changing month to month. So this summer, we're going to have Jupiter through our office window. We will eventually have Saturn and the Milky Way. That's going to be glorious this summer. So things to look forward to, people. You can just kind of make out this faint cloudiness in the sky. This band here, that's the band of the Milky Way. And Saturn this summer is going to be completely lined up with the Milky Way. So I see some amazing astrophotography in my future. And things do constantly change. If you don't like where they are now, wait. So what I'm showing is, right here where it's as high in the sky as it's going to get is essentially the end of July, beginning of August is going to be prime for when to see this. This is what I'm looking forward to. I hate all of this. Mars is going to be large stuff. So what that's talking about, and how do I show that in Stellarium? I want to change my position to be outside of the Earth. That was the wrong set of buttons. Let's get rid of the help. Let's change my location. I want to be solar system observer. I think I need to turn the horizon off because currently it's just kind of ridiculous. So let me go into my settings. Do show planets. I need to turn off the landscape. Do not show me the ground right now. All right. Now, here's the sun. Let's turn off those equatorial lines. And I'm going to try and move the sun to the center of my field of view. Now, I have a really busy sky right now, so let's turn off the stars. All I want is planets. Oh, I wanted to actually turn off the stars. It's not going to let me actually turn off the stars in a quick way, is it? Okay. So let's make it easier to see the planets. Maybe. It's not labeling planets. Let's see, if I advance time, do I see things moving? Why don't I see things moving? Okay, I'm going to find myself a planet. I may not be zoomed correctly to easily find a planet. Earth. Show me Earth. Sorry, my phone is being loud. It's not labeling Earth. Are you Earth? No, you're not Earth. I haven't done this in too long. Earth. That's this. Oh, I'm zoomed in way too much. That's my problem. Let's zoom in on this. Okay, now I have a solar system. Much better. Okay, so we have Earth and Mars. Let me see if I can turn on the orbits. Show planet orbits. Yes. Show planet markers. Yes. Okay. Now, if I select different worlds, I get different lines. I select no world. It's not going to show me multiple lines. Okay. Now, as I go back in time to get things lined up, there, you can see Earth catching up to Mars, and there they are in August, pretty close to one another in their orbits. Now, you can see that these orbits aren't perfectly circular, and the Mars orbit, we are closest to it because it is at its point closest to the sun, and we are kind of farther away from the sun than we normally are. And this allows Mars to be minusculely larger than normal on the sky. But it's not a huge difference, folks. 2003 was the biggest it's been in a while. One of the lower edge buttons toggles the ground. Thank you. I should have known that. Aha! Well, it's not going to let me turn it back on, apparently. That is all good to know. Okay. I'm totally in Stellarium, Bill. This is Stellarium. So yeah, I wish I could figure out how to get the orbits to stay on rather than being there when I click on them. Show planet orbits. I'm very confused. Meh. Okay, I'm going to move on. Oh, the observer location. Let me show you how I did this, Bill. Location window, I picked Planet Solar System Observer. You have to scroll down to be able to find it. But it's there. You can pretty much do anything with this software. And my turtle just jumped into his water and it made a really scary noise. Okay, so here are all of our worlds, and my homework for myself is to figure out how to get these orbits to stay turned on so that you can better see how it is that this summer Earth and Mars are going to be closer to one another. Yeah. So this is what I had planned for today. I've only been on for about 45 minutes. Do you guys have any questions? I can't figure out how to select multiple objects. Shift click doesn't do it. Let me Google this in a different window. Stellarium. Turn on all orbit paths. Sky and viewing options. It's only showing one at a time in the examples as well. It looks like it's designed to only show one at once. I'm going to try to live stream tonight. I don't know if I will succeed. I don't know if I'm simply going to be a tangled mess of cables or not. So we'll see what happens. Yeah, it's kind of a goal. It doesn't mean I will succeed, but it's worth trying. Now, one of the interesting things about having this turned on the way I have it turned on is you can actually see how things move through the solar system and start to think about how they move through the sky. Now, let me back this up in time, backing up in time, backing up in time, backing up in time. Come on, keep going. I should probably be doing this faster than a day at a time, but we live a day at a time, so I'm going to scroll a day at a time. Now, I want to draw a line. How can I draw a line? It won't let me draw a line. Okay. You can imagine drawing a line through Earth, through Mars, and outwards towards the stars. That line, as time changes, you can see the angle of the line changes so that Mars, relative to the stars, actually initially appears to be moving in one direction. And then as the Earth catches up, now we have Mars essentially will end up doing a loop-de-loop. You guys want to see me a tangled mess of cables? I might have to set that one for like mature content. So we'll see what's possible. We will see what is possible. Wow. Anyways, you can start to see that some of these different objects actually appear to change direction in the sky as our Earth passes them. Let me zoom out a little bit. That is advancing time. That's okay. How do I, in this field of view, okay, I needed to change what was selected. So now we can see all the outer objects. there's Earth. So can I get Earth? Yeah, I can get Earth and Saturn in at once. So here's Saturn, here's Jupiter. And as long as all of these things are essentially above the line that you draw perpendicular to the Earth-Sun line, you can tell that things are up in the sky. No, I will be completely sober from using a telescope. I've seen what happens if you try and telescope drunk. It's not pretty. Yeah. Do you guys have any questions? I am literally rambling right now. Let me switch views and I'll just talk to you. So my goal is, I don't know if I'll stream it, my goal is to try and get the telescope out tonight, get a view of the Orion Nebula. I think on my camera, because I'm not sure if I want a large field of view or a small field of view, and I know my fastest lens is my 55 millimeter and then my 100 millimeter. I'm going to take my 55 and 100 fixed lenses with me and see which one gives me a field of view that makes me happiest. I'm thinking I'm probably going to want to use the 100. I think it's the right size for this, but I'll figure out as I go. I have a Canon T7i. It's just one of the Rebel series. It's nice and simple. You know, I'm not sure if mine's a 50 millimeter or a 55 millimeter Gordon, actually. It is a crop body. You're right, Bill. Yeah, I don't know how late I'm going to be out tonight. And the 50 millimeter, I don't know, it always feels to me not quite what my eye sees and frustratingly not as zoomed in as I want. I tend to spend a lot of time frustrated with my 50 millimeter lens. Other than that sucker practically sees in the dark. It is the fastest lens I have. The nice small size of the Rebel. The 7 I'm finding is much smaller than my 3 was. And it feels good to like hold it with smaller hands, and so I'm happy. Yeah, I love my camera. I absolutely adore my camera. It does good by me most of the time. Other questions? Anything else out there? Oh, yeah, let me actually, I think I can just grab my camera. Hold on. So I currently have, I thought this was a 100 millimeter lens. It's a 90 millimeter lens. I lied. This is a 90 millimeter. I'm trying to find what the F ratio is on it. This is my macro setup that is also amazing for portrait photography. It just happens to be what was on my camera last. It's an f2.8, so this is a slower lens, which tells me this is not what I'm going to use tonight. So let me grab my other lens. So I just grabbed my go-to lenses, which usually go with me when I'm traveling. It's a 50 millimeter. So I have a Canon 50 millimeter 1.8 lens. This is probably the exact same one that Gordon has. And this is, because it has that lower f ratio, what that means is it can take a photo much faster. The number of photons that hit each place on your sensor are increased, and that increase just means that you can observe things much faster. Now, my go-to lens for day-to-day use is another Tamron lens. And as far as I'm concerned, this particular lens is made out of magic. Because this lens, and I have fairly small hands. Let me actually find something of like known size. So I have a Lego Lego Stormtrooper guy for size comparison. This particular lens goes from 18 millimeters, which is what you see it set at right here, and then it expands all the way out to 270 millimeters. And as it does that, it goes from f3.5 to 6.3, which is fairly slow. It means it's actually kind of a bear to try and do nighttime photography with. The reason it's so slow is because they had to put so much optics into it to allow something this tiny to have such an amazing zoom range. This also is not something I will be using on the night sky. So I may take my 100 millimeter with me just to see what it does. So I have my 100 millimeter, I have my go-to 50 millimeter, and I'll see what they're both capable of. Yes, Bill, my zoom lens does have issues with dust capture. Yeah. Okay, I lost something in the chat. Let me scroll a bit. So Cosmic Lettuce, I'm going to be using a telescope with the camera piggybacked on it. The telescope itself, I have a Celestron webcam that will be set up on my non-tracking telescope, and on my tracking telescope I have a CCD. It's one of the AKIC ones. I'm totally blanking on its brand or on its series number at the moment. So I'll set the CCD up on my tracking scope, but I'm still trying to work the kinks out of all of those things. So the one thing I'm counting on is my beloved camera piggybacked on that tracking telescope to actually get me something halfway good. So always try all the things, maybe not all at once, but hey, yeah. So Worldwide Telescope is Worldwide Telescope is a data mining platform more than it is planetarium software. Worldwide Telescope is incredibly powerful if you want to try and do data display, if you want to try and tell stories, if you want to, one of my favorite data visualizations I ever saw within it was a time series of all of the Earth's earthquakes over time, and it really shows you where the Ring of Fire is. Worldwide Telescope was originally developed by Jonathan Fay at Microsoft, basically because he wanted something awesome for his personal telescope, and then he added all of these data mining tools, and as he moved into a new role in Microsoft, he couldn't continue maintaining it, so part of his time goes to the American Astronomical Society. Part of his time is working on different projects at Microsoft Research. So Worldwide Telescope is really cool software. Other than the fact that it really doesn't like to run on a Mac, it does really cool things, but it's not planetarium software. There's a lot of different things that you can do with it, though, that are just different things that you wouldn't do in Stellarium. Yes, Bill, zoom lenses do sometimes give a bit of a coma effect. It's just a matter of trying to keep the things that matter most to you in the center of your lens. Oh, that's a good idea, Bill, about how to create darks. I'm just going to have to play. Anyways, it's been about an hour, and I want to enjoy some of the sunshine before I enjoy some of the darkness. Like I said, I'm not sure if I'm going to stream or not. It's going to be very last minute. I'll probably tweet. Give this channel a follow if you haven't already. And if you have the Twitch app installed on your phone, it'll give you a notification that I'm going live. And maybe I'll see you tonight, and maybe I won't. Either way, Matt Richardson should be back on Wednesday. I will be back on Tuesday evening. I'll be working on my variable star simulation software, and I will see all of you then. Wait, there's a question. What type of telescope would you suggest someone buying who wants to get into amateur astrophotography? I would suggest you get a Cassegrain telescope, a Schmidt Cassegrain, that is the largest weight or largest aperture, it's the same thing really, that you can comfortably lift and comfortably afford, because if you can't pick that sucker up, you're never going to use it. And make sure you have a tracking mount. There are some really good systems out there, especially by Celestron, where it's an all-in-one package. You get the Schmidt Cassegrain telescope, you get the drive system, it's all combined. It's gorgeous. So take a look. The folks at Oceanside Photo and Telescope, I've relied on them for years whenever I needed to buy stuff to steer me right. They have more than once talked me out of buying things I didn't actually need and helped me buy the thing that I thought I was trying to buy in the first place. And that kind of advice is super useful. I have no clue how to destroy a flat earth argument. I can't help you with that one. So Bill, this is what I mean by buy the one that you're comfortable lifting. Yeah, always own equipment that you're comfortable using, and the right telescope for you is the one you're going to use, not the one that's going to sit in your closet. So that's all I've got. Have a great morning, evening, afternoon, wherever you may be in the world. And I'll maybe see you tonight. And I will definitely see you on Tuesday. Bye-bye.